Hey everybody, welcome back to the... Where the fuck is mine? You might need a mic for this. Feels so stupid. Okay, so let me do it again. Hey everybody, welcome back to the LuckyDog podcast. This is your host, Elias Roush. This podcast is sponsored by EliasRoushMedia.com, photo, video, digital media production. Sorry, I originally started this podcast and I didn't have my mic in front of me, and for some reason it's got me goose and giggling. I don't know what's got me doing. So, Ip Man 4. This is Ip Man 4 The Finale, the 2019 martial arts film directed by the same guy that has been reoccurring director for the past four movies, Wilson Yip, and also produced by Raymond Wong. We are also bringing back Edmund Wong on the writing staff. Same editor, different cinematographer, Chin Si Kung. Um, like I've said in the other videos, may get some of the pronunciation wrong, but it's only doing with this the utmost respect. Um, let's continue on. Running time 105 minutes. Budget of 52 million. When they put 52 million dollars in this, they got 239 million dollars back. Wow, that's kind of incredible. Considering what was Ip Man 3, they had 36 million in and 157 million back. So we have gone up. What is that, like 70 million almost? Probably a little bit more than that. Yeah, about 80 million or something like that. Something crazy, with 20 million more dollars. So yeah, people love their Ip Man. One of the best looking movies of the franchise. Still cinematography through the roof. Love the direction of this movie. I'm going to talk about the pros and cons first this time. Uh, Story, I like the story in this a little bit better than the others. Pacing, I feel like the pacing of this movie feels very deliberate. The pacing in the movies, the first and the fourth movie, are the strongest because I feel like they know exactly how they wanted to start this movie and how they wanted to end this franchise. Um, yeah, the pacing, the action, again, phenomenal, all of that good stuff. The cinematography still blows my mind. I love how they have the cinematography, and the direction in this feels as if it is a foreign film and it's shooting the United States from like a foreign film perspective, and I love that. Just that perspective, I haven't seen that done very many times. Excuse me, a little bit of drink for the review. So, yes, the fourth film and co-production in Hong Kong, China began April 2018 and ended in July of the same year. It was released December 20th, 2019. So we already talked about the budget, the running time. Running time is just about the same as the all the other movies. Um, let's talk about the plot. I think this is where we're gonna drop off everyone that has not seen the movie, does not want to hear the spoiler take on it. Come back after you've watched the movie or you are ready for it. I know this can be kind of emotional for everybody because we're all finishing up the Ip Man series. We did watch Master Z, so I believe we're going to do a review on that movie as well. But still, Ip Man 4. It's a little bit sad to think about. It's the last one with Donnie Yen, at least, that I can find. There are other Ip Man movies that don't feature him, but I don't think any of them have been done to this degree. This poster's badass. Him doing practicing Wing Chun on a Wing Chun dummy that's on fire. That is freaking sick. I don't think that ever happens in the movie. But anyways, that'd be kind of ridiculous. It'd be crazy if he had to do like Wing Chun on like a piece of wood, so he had to like take it out, and it actually was like him doing the practicing block. I don't know. That's neither here nor there. Um, so here is the plot for Ip Man 4. By the way, full movie reviews, full plot synopses, everything good, everything that you're looking for is $1 or $2 depending on what tier you decide to subscribe to on Patreon. Patreon.com/LookItUpPodcast is a fantastic way to support the podcast and bringing thorough, deep, seeded reviews, that we get in the nitty gritty of like what's really going on here from a specific perspective, to an extent of much as that we can, and trying to incorporate that. So yeah, thank you for watching, listening, Look It Up Podcast. Patreon.com/Look It Up Podcast. LuckyDogPodcast.com is also another website. That's our website, to go check out all of the reviews, the full library, the Patreon, social media, all that good stuff, all at LuckyDogPodcast.com. Here is the plot of Ip Man 4. By the way, we are streaming live on Twitch right now. Be sure to check out Twitch, Look It Up Podcast. We are streaming live on there, answering questions, talking to the people. Here's the plot, Ip Man 4. In 1964, following the death of his wife, Ip Man discovers he has throat cancer due to chronic smoking, which is something that we did state and that we did see from the beginning of the series, which I guess is really something that they've seeded as early as like the first scene of the movie. I want to say they were fighting at the first scene of the movie, but he was also smoking too. That was something I was very surprised to see someone of this stature to do, considering how healthy he was. He didn't seem to be in that bad a shape, but he was a smoker. And so this is where it's coming back to get him in the butt, I guess. Ip Man discovers he has throat cancer due to chronic smoking. After his rebellious son, Ip Ching, fights back against a school bully and is subsequently expelled, Ip Man decides to travel to San Francisco in order to look for study opportunities. He entrusts Ching to his friend, Fat Po, and promises to call Ching every night. And so Ip Man, Donnie Yen, whatever you want to call him, it feels like they're intrinsically one person now at this point because we've seen him in so many different situations. But I feel for him. I feel so bad for Donnie Yen's character. Not only from the end of what happened at the end of 3, losing his wife, his family's kind of falling apart to an extent. He's finding out that he is terminally ill as well. It's not looking great. This is not exactly the happy ending everybody had hoped for such a wonderful individual that has gone down in history as someone's history that might be a little bit muddled to some people, that people might not know. So Ip's student, Bruce Lee, has upset the local martial arts community in San Francisco by opening a Wing Chun school, teaching non-Chinese people martial arts, and writing an English book on martial arts. This whole section of the story I could totally see being real. I could see it being true. I could see the Chinese community, especially in San Francisco, at that point being just like, absolutely not. This is our culture. This is what we've brought. This is some of the only things that we can still call ours. And if Bruce Lee was, I guess showing that to non-Chinese people in the community, it would, in some people's eyes, in these people's communities' eyes, it could go against or be used against the Chinese. And so it was a defense mechanism for the longest time, is what I was saying, is that, Grandmaster Wan, I believe. Grandmaster Wan he says something to Ip at a certain point, is like, you haven't been here. You don't understand what it means to be or feel like an outsider in this world, You have lived back in the quote-unquote motherland, I guess. But you haven't been in America. You have not experienced racism. like that. I mean, they debatably they experienced it, and they did experience it in the second movie, but you haven't experienced it from living within inside the country or inside the territory. Being in a place where it's not exactly uh, your your original home, and you're trying to call it home, but yet being told you can't live here by terrible racist or whoever, whatever type of people that are telling you you can't live there. And so I do enjoy this perspective of this outsider's perspective of going into the culture, into an American westernized culture back in the day, in such a tough period. I mean, I couldn't imagine. Well, it's very much the oppression and things that we have seen on against other races as well, but I feel like this was so specific to the Chinese that it's like stands out. You're like, whoa, this is fucked up. So let me see. Ip discovers from his friend Liang Jin that Ip is a foreigner. Sorry, what am I saying? Ip's student Bruce Lee has upset the martial arts community in San Francisco by opening the Wing Chun School, teaching non-Chinese people martial arts, and writing an English language book on martial arts. See, I could definitely see why that would upset people. I also found it fascinating. I wanted to know what the interpretation of the Bruce Lee's family, of the estate of Bruce Lee, what they thought about this whole part of the movie. If this had really happened, if people were really thinking about this, um, it is interesting to think about because uh, it questions what Bruce Lee was thinking when he was creating all of this and building his empire. I say empire, but building his brand. It wasn't really an empire. I think the guy was confident in what he did, but I wouldn't call what he had an empire. He wasn't here long enough to have an empire, in my opinion. He could have, um, and his estate certainly does, and his name certainly has the legend behind it. But I don't know if that's what you would call it yet. So he discovers his friend Liang Jin that because Ip is a foreigner, a referral letter from the Chinese Consolidated Benevolent Association is needed to enroll Qing into an American school. Grandmaster Wan Zonghua, the association's president, refuses to write a letter as Ip is unbothered by Lee's actions. And because Bruce Lee is a disciple of Ip's, they kind of are putting what Bruce Lee is doing at the feet of Ip, as if Ip had anything to do with it, like, which he doesn't. So, whereas the other grandmasters display open contempt. The other grandmasters in the situation and San Francisco, don't want martial arts taught to non-Chinese people at this time. So we can clearly see the mix. So after a brief confrontation with Juan, resulting in a broken laptop, Ip leaves. Um, yeah, Grandmaster Juan has laptop, a broken tabletop. Sorry, there's this whole scene where all of the Grandmasters are disagreeing with Ip, and they're like, Grandmaster's like, drink the tea, drink the tea. I think you should drink the tea. And then he's like pushing that thing, this like glass piece that's kind of going between Ip and Grandmaster Juan, and they're both like using the force, like and he's like, and eventually that like thick ass piece of glass. I don't think that's physically possible, but that thing's like, and Ip's like, all right, I'm out. He's like, I ain't fixing that, and I ain't drinking your tea. So get your ass out. I was like, Ip is the man. But I mean, I, the thing is, Ip is such a modest guy, but he's really set in his ways, where he's not going to bend down, bow down, do anything to, definitely not to the foreigners, but like where he doesn't like he's set in his ways, It's hard to explain, but he's not gonna like bend over for somebody to, you know, bend over backwards for someone to step all over him. He doesn't. He needs the respect. Um, so while leaving the school after a meeting with the principal, Ip chances upon Juan's teenage daughter, Yana, undergoing a racist attack from a rival cheerleader, Becky, and her male friends. This was extremely hard to watch. There's several times in this series where it's just hard to watch what's going on or what's happening to the women in this series. Like, please, can we give them a break, or can we give them something of substance so that they aren't always being, tormented of some way? I was just like, God dang! Even this young girl cannot catch a fucking break from either being hurled racist slurs or being thrown up against a fence. And Ip was taking his sweet motherfucking time. Ip is like across the field, like, what's going on? Picking up his kid or something like that. Or, sorry, he was at the, he wasn't picking up his kid. At, he was at the school, and he's like, what's happening over there? And, the daughter's like, like getting fucked up, like punched, screamed at, her hair's getting like, like she's like literally getting attacked left, right. Ip's like, wait, what? And she's like, blah, blah, help, help, blah. Like all this craziness is happening to her. I'm like, yeah, get to the fucking fence, get to the fucking fence. I was just like, this is really fucking intense, and it's a different story when you see two grown-ass men, hitting the Wing Chun styles, like a hi-ya, one of those. But when you see, like, young adults attacking each other, it's just like, oh my God, it's like, is this what the world's coming to, kind of thing? And it makes you feel like, oh my gosh, there's no hope for the world. And you see this young girl being attacked, and Yana, I'm like, Ip, please go whoop these people's ass. And Ip eventually gets there. He's like, ah, yeah! And he's not literally like a yeah, it's more like a silent hi-ya, but you know what I'm saying. He eventually hits them, fucks them all up. All those kids get whacked, smacked everywhere. I was just like, after they attacked Yana, I don't feel bad for what Ip just did. I was just like, you put it on yourself. All of y'all, you did it to yourself. And of course, Becky goes back to bitch. I gotta say that this doesn't ever really come back. Kind of like something that never really comes back in the third movie. What never comes back? Like, there's not a lesson taught to Becky, in my opinion. She's a terrible person throughout this movie, and almost nothing comes back. It puts, like, the kibosh on it once, and then that's it. But, Yana is trying to fight them off at first, but it's like, God dang. That was hard to watch. And so, yeah, sorry. I'm going to need a little bit of seltzer for that. That was a lot to handle. Oh my God. Yeah, so where the hell are we again? Okay, so Yana fights back, which results in Becky accidentally cutting herself on a pair of scissors. And Becky was cutting Yana's hair, so fuck you, Becky. She is ultimately outnumbered, and Ip steps in to rescue her. He escorts Yana home, where Juan accuses Ip of using his daughter merely to get the letter and challenges him to a fight for it. Grandmaster Wong is a hard fucking ass. He's like, oh, you got beat and called all these terrible racist slurs, my daughter? Oh, okay, well, that's just another day for you. What is it, Tuesday? It's just another Tuesday for you. And he's like, Ip, you ain't gonna get that letter. And I was like, my God, this guy's such a hard ass. No, it's like, I didn't feel bad for Grandmaster Wong, but I felt terrible for Yana. She's just in a really tough situation. And I kind of thought there's like this like correlation of how Juan's daughter Yana and Ip kind of have like this paternal relationship, kind of like Ip's son's not really that great to him, so he's kind of like taking Yana under his wing a little bit as like the young person he's taking care of, and kind of vice versa. Um, but anyways, and she's kind of looking for more or less a father figure, and Ip is way more of a father figure than Grandmaster Juan is. So what else do we have? The duel is interrupted by an earthquake, and Juan tells Ip they will finish their fight at an upcoming mid-autumn festival. Ip refuses, explaining that he merely accompanied Yana home for her own safety, and leaves. Um, yeah, it's like, dude, can you take it easy? Like, your house is a ruin. You're having like a random Wing Chun fight in the middle of the living room. Like, come on, dude. If you get a wife anytime soon to come in at this point, she's going to be so pissed. Like, so pissed. The room is going to be a mess. You can't just be doing that. That's all I got to say. And assuming he was looking for a wife, maybe he wasn't. He might have been looking for a husband. Who knows? Becky lies to her parents, claiming that she's been attacked by Yana. Her father, Andrew Walters, is an officer for the Immigration and Naturalization Service, the INS. Dun dun. And is pressured by his wife into holding the association responsible and deporting all illegal immigrants with them. It's crazy how this like chain of command could actually happen, which definitely feels like this could have happened in real life. Maybe it wasn't like, specifically two people getting, a girl being attacked, but I could see how a young person could tell their parents, so and so wasn't acting right and whatnot, and they're acting suspicious, and if they're in a source of power, they could really mess somebody up. And so they're, Becky's gonna fuck up Yana and Grandmaster Juan's situation, just being able to live there, completely fucked up, all because of a situation that Becky started, and all because, like, what is it? Yana is a better dancer. It's like, oh my gosh, you're gonna get her deported because Yana was a better dancer. I was like, good God, man. So on top of all that craziness, what do we have? Meanwhile, Hartman Wu, a staff sergeant in the United States Marines and student of Lee, attempts to convince Barton Geddes, the gunnery sergeant on his base, to incorporate Chinese martial arts into their hand-to-hand combat training. Geddes, an openly racist man, proves the Marines' current karate program superior by having Hartman fight the Marines' karate instructor, Colin Frater, who defeats him. So, I didn't understand why Geddes was so racist against them, even thinking or even having the thought of practicing Wing Chun, versus the karate that they are already, the karate they've already learned. I mean, I don't think, obviously everything racist and terrible that Barton says is wrong, but if he's already using a type of karate or a type of martial arts that seems to be decent, I can see why he would use that, why he would currently use that. I guess my biggest thing was he was so racist in saying how terrible Wing Chun was, and it just wasn't the way, but his way of the karate was. Like, I don't think you can be just as openly racist and say all these derogatory things about martial arts and then continue to use martial arts as your current way of fighting. I was just like, this doesn't correlate for me. I didn't want to see another Westerner do, another boxing match. Like, I enjoyed having the Westerner antagonist actually do the karate, but the reasoning of him saying that he wasn't going to do the karate in the first place didn't really make much sense, besides saying that he didn't understand it or he didn't learn it. But it was like, I don't know. It almost would have made more sense if he didn't know karate and he got his ass kicked by someone that did know karate, and that thus he would say, "Oh, we would need to learn that style, or we need to learn that." I mean, his karate was still pretty impressive from what he was having to do. You know, even the Colin Frater guy, these aren't good guys in the movies at all, but they're not like bad at the fighting that they do. They almost beat all of the Grand Masters, I feel like, don't they, at one point? Um, or a couple of Grand Masters and a couple of people after a certain point. I think that's coming up soon, and it's like it's hard to. One, I don't believe that either one of these Westerners would be able to defeat a Grandmaster at Wing Chun. That just doesn't seem great. That doesn't seem like it would happen. But on top of that, I didn't think the argument for him saying my karate is better than your Wing Chun. It's just like what it for me. It's just like you got to go. You got to break him up further than that. He didn't have to be a boxer. He didn't have to be in karate, but maybe a different style of fighting. But I don't know. It was the fact that he was using all of these racist, derogatory terms on top of using karate at the same time. It's almost like saying how much you hate Mexicans and yet you eat at a Mexican restaurant 2 to 3 times a week. I know there's a lot of people that do that, and a lot of hypocrites that do that. But it's kind of in the same realm. Uh, so Colin Frater defeats him. Hart later manages to convince the unit's commanding officer of Kung Fu's potential and is instructed to film the Mid-Autumn Festivals happening at Chinatown for research purposes, infuriating Geddes. Geddes instructs Frater to beat the Grandmasters at a festival. Frater proves his strength by defeating 3 Grandmasters until Ip intervenes and beats him badly, hospitalizing him. Excuse me. So yeah, Frater, the Karate Marines guy, he defeats 3 Grandmasters, and I'm not saying I don't think they were dirty matches if I remember correctly. It did come off as they were just, being extremely derogatory, rude, racist, everything above. They weren't being, honorable about it. But I'm pretty sure he did whoop these Grandmasters at one point. And I was like, can we get fucking Ip in there? Can we get somebody that knows how to fight in this shit? And so when Ip goes in there, that was a very satisfying win for Ip. He gave me some of these, some of those, some of these, and called it a day. Meanwhile, Juan, who was supposed to be present at the festival, is arrested by the INS. Upon seeing his ally in the hospital, Geddes barges into the association to find out where Juan is, revealing his own martial arts prowess. He brutally defeats all the Grandmasters present. He then threatens Walters to release Juan into the Marines' custody before bringing Juan into the camp to fight him. Due to a tip-off by Billy, a subordinate of Walters and another student of Bruce Lee, Ip and Lang Jin help members of the association reevaluate by the time the INS conduct its raid. Lee provides refuge for the association, earning their respect. So I did forget this whole part where they have Bruce Lee at the beginning having the first fight and the first real confrontation with these guys and Colin Frater when these guys kind of come off the street straight up Cobra Kai style, just bust up in the diner like, hey, your karate sucks, my karate's better. That they came up in there and said that, and Bruce Lee's like, all right, I'll have to come whoop your ass. And Bruce Lee does whoop Colin's ass. It's a great ass fight. But I believe, Colin goes home with his tail between his legs. And I honestly thought we were going to get way more Bruce Lee in this movie because of that. So, let me see. So yeah, I this was one of the main times I felt the tension in this movie at such a high level when they had the INS raid and all of this was going to go down. I was like, "Fuck, these people are this is beyond fights anymore. You're not gonna karate chop, Judy chop, any chop out of any of this. This is gonna be, it's becoming way more of a political thriller in some sense when it comes down to uh, the stakes of what's going on. This is not about getting punched in the face anymore. This is about deportation. This is some crazy shit. Um, so Juan and Getty's fight at Marines camp. At first, Juan is able to match all of Getty's blows, but is eventually overwhelmed and seriously injured. Just like some of the other repetitive stuff in the story of the Ip Man franchise, this does have that same feeling of enter an antagonist, he beats up somebody we know, and send Ip Man in to go to go protect or to defeat this other or evil sector or person. Um, I can name that with the first movie, which would be the ultimate bad guy in that. I don't remember his name, but uh, the Japanese leader in that. The second one, and it's basically Ip is having to avenge a fallen friend in almost every single one of these movies. The first one is the one his one friend at the beginning that was doing okay, but then ends up going down. I think his name is Lee, maybe. I can't remember. Anyways, one of his one of his friends goes down in the first movie. He's got to avenge him. He does. Second one, Sammo Hung goes down. He dies. He has to avenge him. Third one, kind of the same sense. Someone's kidnapped. Someone is attacked. One of the masters is attacked, and he has to avenge him eventually. And so essentially the same thing happens here. All four movies, someone has to be avenged by Ip Man. And so, there was this kind of like blaxploitation character that's in this movie, because he has like this kind of he has this afro and this the swag, I guess. He's kind of coming in there. What reminds me of the Enter the Dragon character. What's that guy's name? Enter. He gave off that Jim Kelly. He gave off Jim Kelly vibes, and I love Jim Kelly in Enter the Dragon. I just thought that I was just like, this is kind of a interesting take on this character. I guess because it was the late '60s. It would make sense. But I'm trying to find that guy's name. I don't see him. I do not see him. Wonder if is Master Lost someone different than who I've been saying. Oh well. Sorry about that. Y'all got it anyway. Anyways, okay, so what do we have? Juan and Getty's. Okay, so Juan is seriously injured by Getty's. And an emotional Ip reveals to Poe that he has cancer. Poe finally tells Ip Ching to talk to his father over the phone after many failed attempts done by Ip Man before. And it's just heartbreaking to see them two kind of have a bad relationship. It's just, the typical father-son that don't get along because of some specific reason. This one would be probably because of the mother hasn't been in the situation for quite a while at this point. Not sure how many years it was after that. I think it's probably 6 or 7 years at least since the last one. But anyways... What else do we have? So yeah, his son finally talks to him, and they have a nice cry over the phone. Um, so Ip Man is brought into the Marines camp by Hartman and ultimately defeats Geddes after a long and savage fight. I gotta say, this was uh, one of the most interesting and hardest to watch fights as well. Um, Always have this kind of weird, eerie feeling of when, something's going wrong or something's happening to somebody, and there's like a group of people watching it happen and they're not doing anything about it. At certain points of this fight, I felt like Ip Man was going down and people were just having to stand there at attention in their underwear, just like oh my gosh, or watch him go down in that way. I think that they were actually. I'm thinking of the fight with Juan. I don't think they were actually sitting in their underwear when when Ip Man was fighting. But I will say the uh, the fight is phenomenal. I did a watch along with it, and I was just like, this is insane. Um, he gets some of these, some of those, some of these, some of those, some of these. Hits him, about knocks him probably to unracist by the end of the whole fight. Just knocks the fucking living sack out of Geddes and hits him with the whoosh, Judy chop in the eye. That's never fun to have. Never want one of those in the eye. Yeah, it is a long, savage fight. It's probably about a 5 minute fight, and it goes down hard. And there's several times that like Ip Man could probably theoretically kill somebody with a theoretical Judy chop to the neck. Um, Juan prepares the referral letter for Ip, but the latter states that he does not need it anymore, as he does not intend to move to San Francisco. Ip returns to Hong Kong and reconciles with his son. A wary but determined Ip instructs his son to film him as he demonstrates Wing Chun on a wooden dummy. A closing on screen text states that Ip succumbs to cancer in 1972 at age 79. An epilogue shows Lee paying respect to Ip at his funeral, as more text reveals that the Marines officially incorporated martial arts into their training in 2001. And that, my friends, is Ip Man 4, the final. 2019. Directed by Wilson Yip. Wow. Well, we covered it. We covered the entire Ip Man franchise. At this point, we have not covered Master Z yet, but I think, why the heck not at this point? We've already watched it. Might as well cover it. Wow. What do I got to say about Ip Man 4? It's a slight mixed bag when it comes down to having it end. Like, I don't want it to end, but I understand that Donnie Yen can't play Ip Man forever. Which is probably why they have the Master Z series coming out. We're like, we need more of this. Keep on pumping this shit out, especially with this money that we're making. But yeah, Ip Man 4. There's a sense of fun and modestness that comes with the Ip Man franchise. I think it's specifically that comes with Donnie Yen playing him. Because after watching Master Z, I just wanted to know and feel what the difference was when we don't have Donnie Yen on screen with them. Donnie Yen on the screen as Ip Man. And that's what it really feels like it comes down to is the understanding, the modestness, the likability, the charisma that Donnie Yen is bringing as Ip Man. It's all there. This guy is embodying this character. I want to learn more about Donnie Yen as an actor, just as many actors before that have taken on roles. I haven't seen too many roles that have just blown my socks off like this guy has. Yeah, so I'm kind of looking at him. He's 57 now, so he still has time. He's still relatively young in comparison to what older action stars are these days, anyways, you know? Um, so, yeah, let me see if there's anything else I want to talk about with regards to his Ip Man franchise or anything else that he's been in recently. So, he was actually in. He was Commander Tung in Disney's live action Mulan. I kind of want to go back and rewatch that a little bit just to see him in it. Rogue One, a Star Wars story. I kind of want to rewatch that. Triple X Return of Xander Cage. He was in that as well. He's in some Western films that I've heard of, seen in some scenes. I've seen him. I just didn't realize who he was. But the dude is fucking, he's a badass. My God, I'm looking at him in a 2016 photo. He looks ripped, and he's fucking, he's a G. We don't see him with his shirt off. I don't think this entire series, but my God, I'm looking at a Wikipedia thing right now. God dang, dude is fucking ripped. So let me see. In light of the virus pandemic in 2020 February, Donnie Yen stepped in to donate $1 million to frontline medical workers. Wow, that's beautiful, Donnie. So yeah, anything else that we need to talk about? Filmography, we kind of covered the majority of the ones that we would probably cover in the Western states. But yeah, thank you for listening, watching Look It All podcast. Let me know how I can improve on the review. Let me know if you liked the Ip Man movie. Let me know if you liked the review. Let me know how I can improve. 5 stars on iTunes. Watch us live on Twitch. Thumbs up, comment, do what you can to help support the podcast. If you enjoyed this Ip Man series review, subscribing would help me the most. We are trying to get to 1,000 subscribers so that we can monetize our videos and make a little bit of money and continue make fun, cool, interesting content for you guys and gals and people in between. So thank you for listening, watching Look It All podcast. Take it easy. Be sure to go to LuckyDogPodcast.com.